My name is Bethany Stoller, and this is an explanation of the vocabulary acquisition model. Thomas Estes is credited with naming and developing the vocabulary acquisition model. Yet the theory of acquiring vocabulary is rooted in cognitive development theory. Piaget first presented to the world an idea of schema. In this concept, he gave us a word for how our brain begins to process by understanding how we connect information to prior learning. One definition of schema is that it is the basic building block of intelligent behavior, a way of organizing knowledge. Indeed, it is useful to think of schemas as units of knowledge, each relating to one aspect of the world, including objects, actions, and abstract concepts, such as building blocks. Others have recommended to think of schema as index files filed in the brain. I think another analogy for schema is like that of the favorite button on your Twitter account. Every time you favorite a tweet, the tweet is saved to your favorite section, available for when you need. As people, we build upon our schema, adding to what is previously known, and the process in which this occurs is called learning. This short video describes the process of acquiring new knowledge very well, including an explanation of Piaget's meanings of schema, assimilation, and accommodations.
Bypass Publishing presents Psychology in the Fast Lane, Difficult Topics Explained, Schemas, Assimilation, and Accommodation. A schema is an organized pattern of thought that establishes a mental framework that represents some aspect of the world. We develop schemas for all types of items and activities, from simple items such as a chair, a car, fish, bird, or house, to complex, like the chemical bonds between atoms or the seating in the House of Representatives. In short, we develop cognitive patterns for many things. We then use the schema we have developed as a means to compare new information against. Here's an example. You have a schema for a chair, a bed, and a sofa. The first time you see a futon, you immediately search your stored schema to see if it fits with anything you have already encountered. If it comes close, you make subtle changes to your schema to include the new item. In this example, you now have a schema of a sofa that includes the traditional characteristics along with those of a futon. So when you can add new information into an existing schema with little effort, you have experienced the cognitive process known as assimilation. When you need to store new information that conflicts with the schema you already have in place, a schema overhaul is in order. The process of accommodation involves the altering of schemas as a result of new information or new experiences, and new schemas may be developed during this process.
According to Piaget and Estes, this is exactly what we do when we acquire vocabulary. Through the lens of this theory, let's look at the steps Kilbane and Millman recommend when using the vocabulary acquisition model. There are 5 steps in the vocabulary acquisition model. The first is to pretest knowledge of words. The second, elaborate and discuss invented spellings and hypothesize meanings. Third, explore patterns of meanings. Fourth, read and study. Fifth, evaluate and post-test. In this first step, pretest knowledge of words, teachers test students' knowledge regarding the words chosen. Whichever pre-assessment tool is used to activate prior knowledge is up to the teacher. The tool should allow students to state their hypothesized meaning and spelling of the words, and allow students to explain any knowledge they have regarding the word. Examples in the classroom include having the teacher say the words out loud and having the student write them down, how they believe the words are spelled, and give a guessed definition. Another example would be to have students take a multiple choice quiz in which they are to connect the correct definition to the word. Step 2. Elaborate and discuss invented spellings and hypothesize meanings. After students have completed the pretest, students then play with the words. They engage in activities that encourage deeper learning. Activities that encourage students to examine and share their hypothesis with other students creates an opportunity for deeper learning. An example of this in the classroom would be to have students get in groups of 3 or 4 and to have them share how they spelled the words and what they think the definitions are. As a group, they would be charged with creating one list of agreed-upon definitions, then presenting this list to the class. This would allow for students who have less prior knowledge to build upon and gain knowledge from the group. Step 3. Explore patterns and meanings. In this step, students discover the correct spelling, definition, antonyms, and synonyms. Typically, graphic organizers are used to help aid students in determining the relationship between the new vocabulary words and other words. Examples of this include graphic organizers such as the Freyer model, that allow students to write down the dictionary definition, the definition in their own words, antonyms, synonyms, and create a mnemonic device. The one below has the definition, illustration, examples, and non-examples. Step 4. Read and study. The read and study step gives students a chance to read, use, and study the vocabulary in context. Not only should they read the words in context, but for better comprehension, they should use the words in context as well. To capitalize on the learning experience, students should practice meaningful exchange regarding their ideas. Examples of this include students creating and acting on a scene in which the actors or actresses use the words in the dialogue. Another example would be to have the students create a crossword with clues, then switch with another student to have them fill out the crossword using their knowledge of the words. Step 5. Evaluate and post-test. Ultimately, students have been working through this process to be able to demonstrate their deep understanding of the chosen words. How the teacher decides to assess these is up to them. Teachers need to make sure evaluation of gained knowledge is authentic, meaningful, and accurately demonstrating students' understanding of the newly acquired vocabulary. Examples of this step could include any of the examples from Step 4, however, in an assessment format and not for formative use. If the vocabulary words themselves are only to be tested in context, the assessment could be students using the words in a final paragraph or essay explaining their understanding of the concepts. How all of this relates to my philosophy of education is that I believe every child can learn, but not only learn. I believe that every student can be successful in their learning. I also think that as 21st century learners ourselves, one of educators' most difficult yet most important tasks is to create a learning environment that allows for everyone to learn. All means all is becoming a well-known phrase in the education system, and I think the heart behind the phrase is that every student is capable of learning, and teachers have the opportunity to create the experience so that they all can learn. At the heart of education is the work of equity. I think this model, when taught with fidelity, can provide equitable outcomes for students. In Marzano's book, A Cluster Approach to Elementary Instruction, a chapter is devoted to explaining the disparities of language acquisition that occur in the home based upon parents' social economic status. Research conducted in 1984 states that there was an estimated 4,700 word difference in vocabulary knowledge between upper and lower class students. And middle class first graders knew 50% more words than lower class first graders. The heart of my philosophy of education is equity. By intentionally teaching vocabulary, we are giving students the language to become equals in a society that is not. We are giving students the tools and resources to break down barriers between our students and the continuing cycle of poverty. Now for the strengths and challenges of this model. This model has many strengths. This model allows for deeper understanding of specific vocabulary, teaches students to examine words' etymology, origin, and morphology, structure. The model also allows students to connect to prior knowledge. The model promotes transfer of knowledge from one context to the next. There are a few challenges that I see in this model, but the one that stands out most to me is that because it utilizes students' prior knowledge, a question that is not explained in my research is that what is a teacher to do when a student does not have prior knowledge to build upon? How do teachers help students connect meaning when they do not have anything to connect it to? I think if this were to happen, a different model of instruction could be utilized. Ultimately, the vocabulary acquisition model is an instructional model that can be used to build student efficacy, vocabulary, language development, and assist students in learning in other contact areas. This quote expresses the importance of vocabulary acquisition well. When names are learned, we see what we had not seen before, for we know what to look for. Language gives us the ability to see and understand what we didn't know. Language gives us a voice, and acquiring more language will help our students towards equitable life outcomes. References for the screencast are the following: Kilbane and Millman, Marzano and Marzano, McLeod, Price, and Willingham. Thank you for watching.